This is one of my favorite episodes. This is the fourth part of this series that I'm doing with Michelle on actual questions that students really want to know the answers to that are looking to study abroad. So, um, join us as Michelle brings those questions right to me, and we bring them right to you right now.
Welcome to Global Student Voices. This is a space for global students or any students navigating global education, asking real questions, and trying to figure out what exactly comes next. If that's you, then you're in the right space. Welcome to today's episode. I'm so excited. We're going to be having a look at something I think a lot of us miss as we're preparing for that global education journey or we're doing our applications for our different universities. So I want you to start off by just imagining a scenario, a situation. You got an email, you open your inbox, and the first thing you see is congratulations, you've been accepted. And you start celebrating for the first few minutes, and then reality hits, and you realize, okay, what comes next? What about the visa requirements? Where am I going to live? How much money do I actually need to make this happen? So, all of those questions start flowing around in your head, and sometimes it's even more difficult if you haven't done this before, if it's your first time navigating global education. And most students focus on getting accepted, the getting accepted part. And today's episode will be focusing on everything that happens after you've been accepted. So let's unpack today's topic with Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, welcome back. Thank you for joining us for yet another episode.
Thank you, Michelle. This is our fourth one. This is very exciting.
Yes, I'm so excited. I'm hoping that most of our students can interact with us and actually get to ask all those questions that can help them navigate their journey and just make it much, much easier for them. But one thing I did do before we recorded this episode was kind of look through the internet. I was doing a bit of research and I was trying to figure out what are some of the challenges students are facing. And although all our students are from different countries, I realized everyone is facing the same problem or the same problems. I have a list that we would be going through, and I thought it would be interesting to just have a take or a perspective from you, knowing that you've worked in different positions as a admissions counselor. You've been working in education for about what 25 years.
Yeah.
So that's yes. So I thought it would be amazing to just get your take on some of these questions. So the first one, the first challenge I found was that students are struggling to find reliable information. And I wanted to actually hear your take on that because I am thinking around the time you were applying for university, I'm sure things were a lot more different compared to 2026.
Yes, absolutely. And the problem is kind of flipped. So the problem when I was applying was that it was very difficult to get information. And then when you had to find an address and you had to send a letter and then you had to wait for a response. And so and even just finding the address, it was just it was a different kind of challenge. The problem today that I'm observing is that there's too much information. There's all the information and it's all available, and it's so much that we just get overwhelmed. We get choice paralysis. Even if we find the information, we have so many choices that it's difficult to settle and to make a final one. We're so worried about making a wrong one. And so it's a real problem. And it seems silly, right? It seems silly, like it's all there. Like all you have to do is get it. Well, you don't know what to ask. And universities try their best to put it in ways that a potential applicant will be able to find the information. But the reality is that you don't even know what questions to ask. And so even if the information is on their website, you don't know what to ask for or how to get it. And so it adds a layer of difficulty that we've never seen before because we've never had all of this information. As if that weren't enough. Then we have places like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok where students share their experience, which is very authentic and wonderful. And I love that. And I like to share them on here too, right? But that's their experience at their university. And that doesn't necessarily translate to what your experience. You're not the same person. You come from different countries, you come from different majors, different. Like everything's different. And so it becomes even more confusing. I actually had a conversation just yesterday with Alula in Kenya. His opportunities are going to be tremendous. He's going into his final year of high school and trying to narrow down potential schools, destinations. Like all bright kids, there's really excellent universities all around the world. So he's looking at China, he's looking at the Middle East, looking at Germany, he's looking at the US, he's looking at Canada, he's looking at all these choices, and they're all different processes to try to get the application. So even this basic starting point is all different. And then, like you said, you get that letter of acceptance, and we all celebrate that. That's fantastic. But the what next is terrifying, right? It's just like completely, for some students, it's completely overwhelming. And they try to anticipate that. I mean, some parents are good about saying, there's going to be something else, or that, a counselor or somebody has clued them into this other stuff. But
Yes.
there's not much point in worrying about that until you've been accepted, right? Because there just isn't. And what I want to encourage people is the reality is there's time from the acceptance to when you're expected to be there. There's time to figure all that out. So you don't have to know the answer to all of the questions you don't know you have before you're accepted at a place. Once you're accepted, you do need to have a plan. How are you going to get all of the rest of the information? If you're applying to the US, typically that university will be able to answer all of those questions, but it'll be on your responsibility to get it as the students, not the school's responsibility to share it. And that's true everywhere. But for the US, typically there's somebody that's going to be letting you know
Yeah.
the visa process and outline, send you the letter of acceptance and send you the invitation, and we'll log you into the visa system and help you set your appointment in your local, wherever your local visa appointment is going to be. And you want to get going on those things right away, because sometimes there's a wait list and sometimes there's long lines and sometimes it's a hassle. And that's pretty generally true. You're going to need a visa. You're going to need transportation. One of the big surprises for a lot of people is they expect, okay, let me tell you this story, Michelle. It's kind of, it's a little scary. Don't be scared, because it's not scary for you. So I was at the airport picking up one of my students. So this is a long time ago when I was at the university, and I had the habit, the town our university was in was about an hour away from the nearest international airport. So we gave information for the students to fly into that airport, share their flight information with us, and we sent someone from our university to the airport to meet them. That is not normal, right? That is not how most universities operate. They are for you on campus, and they expect you to get from wherever you are to their campus. So I was at the airport, and as it was my habit, because I knew this was the experience, I just kind of watched people while I was waiting, and I noticed that there was a young lady near the payphones, so you can tell this was a while ago because there were still payphones at the
Yeah.
airport, and with tears in her eyes and her baggage, and I knew immediately that she was a global student. You can tell, the luggage you carry as a tourist versus as a student, it just looks
Okay.
different. So I walked up to her and I said, "This is very forward. I apologize for intruding, but you appear to be an international student, and I'm guessing you're at a college that did not provide transportation." And she just, like, her eyes got really big. Like, "How could you know that?" I said, "This happened every time I come to the airport. I meet a student like you, and it's a solvable problem." And so I had a cell phone, and so she had a contact person. We were able to get a hold of them. And in that particular case, that university did have transport that came to the airport. So while she was trying to figure out, like, how to get a taxi and how to pay for it and get directions, like, she didn't even know what the address was for university. So while she was trying to figure all that out, I found out that she's going to a university that had transport. We contacted them, got the transport information, and she was able to get on her way. Other cases, I took students with us. Like, we loaded up the vehicle with the student I went to pick up, and we took the other student to their university and dropped them off on the way. Reality is that this is adulting, right?
Yes.
This is no longer here for. This is, you're on your own and you have to figure these things out. And usually there's a solution. It's usually not that difficult. But I've heard so many stories that are not really horror stories, but they're really sad to me, of students who've just taken their bags, walked out, got an Uber, jumped in the Uber, and then realized that they were going to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to go really far to their college because didn't realize how big America was, right? And even like, the state of Indiana is a relatively small state. There's only one international airport. So once you fly in, it can be 3 or 4 hours drive to your school and still be in Indiana. So that's one of the things.
I think that's definitely a blind spot because I did not even think about that at all. That, okay, when I do get there, who's going to take me to the university and is it close by? So I'm hoping that students are actually taking notes and they are planning ahead of time because it's just amazing if you can actually have a space where you can come, tune in every day, and you're discovering all these blind spots because now you can be better prepared and actually know what to expect. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for
Michelle,
that.
one of the reasons that we're starting a community at Global Student Solutions, the Global Student Network, is so that everybody has a place that's free or at least low cost and has monitored quality information, because there's so much out
Yes.
there. Like, you can go on Reddit and get information, but it won't necessarily apply to you. And if you don't fit that Reddit stream, then it doesn't, then that information isn't relevant. Yeah. Michelle, one of the reasons that we're starting a community at Global Student Solutions, the Global Student Network, is so that everybody has a place that's free or at least low cost and has monitored quality information, because there's so much out there. Like, you can go on Reddit and get information, but it won't necessarily apply to you. And if you don't fit that Reddit stream, then it
Yeah.
doesn't, then that information isn't relevant. And right now I get a lot of calls in the
Yeah.
summertime from families that are saying, okay, we got accepted, we're going through we've registered for housing, we've got a meal plan, we're taking care of these things. What are we missing? And that's somebody that you can just say, am I missing anything? Is so valuable. And so that's one of the reasons that we started the community. And as we grow the community, hopefully we'll have ambassadors from all kinds of different colleges and universities, so that you'll actually have a one-on-one with somebody that's in your exact situation. In the meantime, we'll use the experts that we have to help find the answers. But there's certainly there are things that can be found. Right? This is not hidden information. It's just, if you don't know, that's where the experience really pays off, is because I can look at a website and sometimes get the information within a minute or two that you've spent months trying to find. So that's really where
Yeah.
the advantage, and to know that there are experts that can help you is
Yeah,
helpful.
I think that's something very, very important. I'm thinking about the information overload that you mentioned, and how, for example, you can actually find conflicting advice online. I've encountered it as well because someone will be telling you something on YouTube, for example, then there's something else on Reddit, and now you actually don't know what applies to you and what's the actual information that you need. So I think one question then that I would ask is, if a student was interested in being part of this community, how can they be part of the community so they can get reliable information?
Yeah. So at the recording of this episode, the the community is in development. I believe by the time somebody's actually hearing this, that you'll
Yeah.
just go to our website and be able to click on join the community or Global Student Network, and there'll be a spot where you can sign in and get a free admission and get access to all of our podcasts, all of the articles, and most importantly, to the community. And I think that's what I missed. That's one of the things that I survived, because I had a classmate. Her name was Cindy. She's a classmate of mine from high school. She was also at a small school. We got each other's phone numbers and we were able to connect, and we really helped each other out through, well, she helped me. I don't know if I helped her at all, but she really helped me as a voice of sanity, as a place where I could say, I think I'm thinking everything. Did you experience this any differently? But I had a little bit of community. I know a lot of students who are too embarrassed to call classmates and say, I'm lost or I'm confused, I'm uncertain. They're afraid to look dumb
It's true.
at their school, so they don't want to ask anybody locally. If they ask anyone, they often ask people who don't know, like parents, friends, people back home.
Yeah.
They don't know. And like you said, all the conflicting information, even if they go online and find an answer, they may find multiple answers that are all really different from each other, and what applies to them. And it just makes you feel bad. right? I mean, we all hate that feeling when you feel like you should know it. You're a smart person. You should be able to figure this out. Thousands of people figured it out. I hate that when I know students are experiencing that. And that's why we do all the things we do, is to try to grab that uncertainty and
Yeah.
get rid of it, because I think that frees people up to be their best version of themselves.
Yes, that is definitely something that I would have appreciated so much when I was still in high school. Just having someone to be that sound voice that actually helps you navigate the path. So I think the next challenge that I found was that a lot of students are struggling.
Pardon the interruption. Thanks for listening to this episode of Global Student Voices. We're glad you're here. We try really hard to provide good content for international school leaders, parents, and students. But to know what you want to hear, we need to hear from you. So please reach out and let us know what you'd like to hear next. Now, back to the show.
Accommodation, but it's something that happens after. So you actually completely forget because you envision getting accepted and moving in, but sometimes you actually don't know where you're going to move in. You don't know how accommodation works in the country, if there's deposits, how do the locations work. I know when I came to Kigali, it was a bit difficult because most of, for example, the places that are here are not in English, like the names. So it was so hard to even familiarize myself with the map and look at my campus and try and figure out where to stay. And there was very limited school housing as well. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the accommodation options that you think students can look into so they can prepare ahead of time once they've gotten accepted? Yeah. So this is a huge question, and it's critical, right? You have to have a place to stay. One of the things is a lot of students and families look at the price tag on student housing. If the university provides housing, they look at the price tag and they think, "Oh, that's way too much. I'm sure that I can find a cheaper place." And so they immediately apply to live off campus and to find their own place. And I think that's a huge mistake. Yes, a lot of international students live off campus in lots of countries where they have housing, but for the first year, I think you really have to live on campus. I actually recommend people stay on campus as long as humanly possible. There's just so much benefit that comes to living on the campus and so many expenses you don't have if you live on campus. I'll take the US as an example. If you live off campus, one, you often need permission to do so. You can't just get a place and tell the school you're not living on campus. You often need permission to live off campus. Then you're going to need the first and last month rent upfront plus a deposit, and that's minimum. So even if you're like, okay, I have a plan where I'm going to have this a monthly income coming in, you're going to need 4 times that to start in that off-campus housing. And then, like you said, you can't really get a sense. If you haven't been there before, you don't know what's close enough. And you think, oh, I walk 20 minutes to school at home. As long as Google says it's 20-minute walk, that's fine. True. Many communities in the United States, and actually many communities throughout Europe and the United States and Canada, a 20-minute walk is not really reasonable for a student in the climate. One is the climate, right? If it's snowing or icy, a 20-minute walk can quickly become 40 minutes, which can be dangerous. Like if it's very cold, 40 minutes outside in very, very cold weather can be hazardous. Secondly, many of the ways people walk are not walker friendly. There's just many of the roads in the US are designed for cars. Like this is a car culture, and they're not pedestrian friendly. And so like right now from my house to the campus is less than 20 minutes. I can be on campus in less than 20 minutes normally. But right now, the path that I would normally take is closed because there's construction in a building between here and there. So it would take me almost 30 minutes to try find another path that is safe to walk on. I can't walk on the roads. It's not illegal, but it's really dangerous. The cars and trucks drive very fast, and they're not expecting walkers. So then you say, okay, well let me take a bike. That seems reasonable. It is reasonable, but depending on your community, may be also not safe. I bike when I was younger. I biked a lot, but often I had to plot out very specific bike
paths. Most of biking in the US is not functional transport, it's recreational. So the bike paths are places that people like to go, but aren't necessarily to get you to school or work. And so when you're finding a housing location, proximity to the campus is important, and it's also prime. So that housing is more expensive. So by the time you calculate it all out, it often ends up being not that far off. Plus food. Everyone assumes that for food you have a car. If you don't have a car, then what's your plan? Public transportation to get groceries? How often are you going to go? And all of those things are all taken care of with residential housing, because housing, food, everything's included. So that's why I recommend for your first year, if they have on-campus housing, take it. Now they may not. Particularly in Europe, there's kind of a tradition of, yeah, there's definitely a tradition of not having campus housing. That's just not a thing at many universities around Europe. That would be true in Asia and Africa as well. There may be some campus housing, but it's pretty limited. So housing is a legitimate question to ask. If the school has a solution, it may feel expensive, but it's worth doing the first year until you can really calculate your budget, figure out what you need to do.
As I was listening to you, I was thinking of my first year of university because I also immediately saw the school housing. I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money. And I remember immediately thinking, okay, I think I could find housing elsewhere. But I had never been in Rwanda before, and I forgot, or I didn't even think about the fact that one, they're the land of a thousand hills. Because I just thought that was something they would use for tourists, and it was not actually like everywhere. And I came to Kigali, and there were hills everywhere. So even when I was looking through the map and calculating how far is the accommodation from campus, I didn't take into consideration the hills. So the first accommodation I stayed at when I came for my first year, I think it was about 10-15 minute walk, but I had to climb uphill to go home every day after school in the sun, and it was a very high incline. If you're in Kigali in Rwanda, you probably know how many hills are here. So like there's actually so many different aspects, and I'm thinking about Europe, how that would be different in America as well. I didn't even think about the snow and the climate and the car culture that you mentioned. So the roadmap is very different. There's no one size fits all, which I think, yeah, that's why it's very important for there to be a community that kind of brings all of these different perspectives together.
Exactly. And again, we don't know what we don't know, right? And so being
That's
able to
true.
have somebody just say, well, did you think about this? When you research that, did you think about the climate? Think about, just all those things. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of different perspectives for sure. The next challenge that I had here, I think it will be the last one because time is, yes, it's not on our side, but I think it's just amazing because we're learning so many new things. But the next challenge we have is adapting to a new country. I think that's something we also overlook because maybe the narrative or perspective we have, maybe from social media, but there's a lot of practical things that we might miss. So, how exactly would you advise students to deal with some of those emotional challenges when they've moved into a new country? You know, they could face a bit of culture shock. Things aren't done the same as they were done back home. Maybe homesickness as well. So, how do they deal with that? Loneliness as well, because it's not everyone who would immediately maybe have close friends that they can journey with throughout that first few months, first year of their university.
Yeah. This is where I'll say the first 30 days are critical. And I say this a lot, and it's true for a lot of reasons. It's true academically, it's true socially, psychologically, but it's also true culturally. Recognizing that not only are you going to a new country, for pretty much everybody that's listening to this is a new country. It may be back home for some, but it's definitely new. But even those who move from high school to university in the same country find that universities have their own culture. They have their own way of doing things.
Yeah.
And so the posture of a person going into their first year of university is very critical, especially that first 30 days, 90 days, the first 3 months are really, really important, that you are judgment free avoid any moment that you are thinking, do I like this or not? Anyone who asks you, are you enjoying, are you liking? Avoid any judgment for the first at least 30 days. If you can hold out for 90 days, that's best, because it really just recognize it's different. When somebody says, how are you enjoying it? It's different. Of course it's different. That's a much safer answer, and it sets you up psychologically more likely find the path of less resistance and of kind of tranquility. The way that you're going to enjoy your time in that place is going to come from honestly observing, just seeing how things are done, seeing how people behave in certain situations. You get to choose how you're going. You don't need to duplicate. Like, this is not a mimicky kind of situation. You're not looking to see how I want to act as if you're as Rwandan as possible if you're in Rwanda, right? That's not about that. It's just seeing how is it people interact? Where am I different? How would I react differently in that situation? A lot of observation, a lot of question asking, humility, just saying, tell me a little bit about that. That's different than how we do it. Tell me more about, what I noticed that everyone walks on the right side. They pass each other right versus left. That's different from my country where we pass everybody left on the left side. I wonder why that is. Ask local folks, do you know why that is? They probably have no idea they're doing it, right? They do a lot of things without even thinking about it. But sometimes there's a reason. And so asking genuine questions, how did you arrive at that decision? Or, why do you do things that way? Asking questions, being humble and judgment free. Judgment free. If you can nail judgment free, I can almost guarantee you a much smoother, more enjoyable experience in your new place.
That's so true. It's not just about actually getting accepted, it's about how exactly you're going to thrive once you're there. I
Exactly.
think that's a very important note. I think as you're sharing all of this, I'm literally just thinking about the first few months of my stay in Rwanda, my first year. And that was definitely something I experienced, especially culturally. So even with the zebra walking, in Rwanda, it's actually something they respect. So I usually used to rush across the road because back home you need to be prompt and alert. So I
Yeah.
know some of the Rwandan students would be asking me, "Yeah, why are you rushing? Are you okay, Michelle?" So I had to ask, like, "Oh, why are you guys so calm? How does it work here? How does the traffic actually work?" So yeah, you learn a lot of new things. And I agree with you. Being judgment free will help you a lot because you learn a lot more, and yeah, you can actually adjust way, 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 way better.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that take and that perspective. So I think just to wrap up things, Mr. Martin, if our viewers could take away one thing from today's conversation, what would you want that one thing to be?
Well, I think withholding your judgment, that I think the most dangerous question that we ask each other is, do you like things, or are you enjoying it? And that's related to food, it's related to school, it's related to relationships. I think
Yeah.
if we can get out of our vocabulary that valuing of everything in life, we'll be much more content and we're much more likely to flourish. And so that's definitely true. You are looking kind of for preferences when you're selecting a school, but just recognize that there's going to be lots of differences, and you're going to learn and you're going to grow. And you're some of the things that you would, if you allowed yourself, if you needed to judge it early, you would judge it negatively, but later may find
Yeah.
value in it for you, and would have missed it had you judged it too early. So I would say, if there's one thing, live as judgment free as possible for as long as possible.
I agree 100%. Just thinking about it, studying abroad actually isn't just one decision. It's a series of decisions because every step of the way, from before while you're applying to when you actually do get accepted and when you do get to the new place, new environment, there's so many decisions you'd have to make so you're able to thrive. and succeed in the new environment. So I think just one thing I want to encourage all the listeners to do is to pick at least one point, something that we've spoken about today. If it was about adjusting to a new environment, if it was about accommodation, and just ask one question, submit a question through the form, and just start from there. So remember, it's a series of questions, not just one specific decision that you just make. There's so many decisions to make. So I think if we can just start with one question, then everything will be much, much easier. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling a bit overwhelmed, this episode is for you. So you don't need to ask all the questions today. You can just start with one. And yeah, send it through to us through the form and let's figure it out together. I'm so excited to have you help us shape every single episode of What's Next.
I'm so grateful you stayed till the end. This was a great episode, and I hope it was really helpful to you. Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, but we also wanted to make you aware of some of the other ways that you can connect with Global Student Solutions. Global Student Voices is a service of Global Student Solutions. We also provide books and resources like you see behind me, as well as a variety of other services, educational content, and consulting. So we would love to connect with you. And at the very least, if you can follow us and subscribe on our YouTube channel. We also have a membership program coming up, and we'd like you to be the first member. So let us know, get your name on the list, and we'll make sure that you're the first to join the membership community. Thank you, and have a great day.